Howdy and hello everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Rolling Stock of California. In this series, I'll be looking at various kinds of rolling stock used in my home state of California. In this third episode, we'll be looking at the history and use of the F40PH locomotive. So, let's get started. The EMD F40PH's history in California began when the locomotives replaced the older and less reliable locomotives previously used on the San Diegan, San Joaquin's, and Capital Corridor services. At this time, they were paired with the also new Amfleet coaches along with a few older repainted coaches. While the Amtrak F40s were already reaching the middle of their service lives, other newly formed agencies in the state began looking for locomotives for their planned services, and the F40 locomotive seemed perfect for all of them. The first agency to get the F40 series of locomotive was the commuter rail Caltrain, which had service running between San Francisco and Gilroy. This service bought an initial 20 F40PH-2 CAT locomotives numbered 900 through 919 for the service start in 1985. After this came the commuter rail boom of the 90s, which brought the new Altamont Commuter Express and Coast Express Rail, more commonly known as ACE and Coaster. These two services both got a fleet of F40PH locomotives, with ACE getting 6 F40PH-3Cs number 3101 through 3106, and Coaster getting 5 F40PH-M-2Cs number 2101 through 2105. Both of which were not from EMD, rather ACEs were made by MPI and Coasters were made by Morrison Knudsen. After this, Metrolink, a commuter rail that seemed dead set on EMD's F59 model of locomotive, wanted backup/switcher locomotives for their commuter rail service in Southern California. Metrolink got 2 basic F40PHs from Amtrak. Formerly 396 was renumbered to 800, and the other F40, formerly 300, was renumbered to 801. Metrolink also got 2 Union Pacific SD60s, which were renumbered to 803 and 804. In the end, however, only 800 would last, with it being the only one to get repainted into Metrolink's paint scheme. With how broad the F40PH model in SoCal was, for this section I will be going over the basic definition of the F40 because going into detail on every single one used in California would make this video far too long. The F40PH was entered into service in California from the late 1970s with orders/acquisitions continuing all the way to the early 2000s. The F40PH name stood for full-width cowl body, 40 EMD series number, passenger gearing, and head-end power equipped. The F40PH had a max speed of 110 miles an hour, with certain operators limiting it to only 79 or 90 due to track speeds. It had a length of about 56 feet and a power output of about 3,000 to 3,200 horsepower. At the start of the new millennium, Amtrak began to retire their now 30-year-old F40PH locomotives, including the ones used in California, with them being replaced by the new F59 PHI locomotives. However, certain Amtrak F40s began undergoing conversions to NPCUs or non-powered control units. Units 9208, 9215, 9218, 9225, and 9278 were and are still frequently seen on the 3 Caltrans services, filling in for cab cars or straight up running on a low-level set when bi-level equipment is unavailable. 3 of these units, despite still being owned by Amtrak, were painted into an Amtrak California scheme, which is reminiscent of the initial Caltrain F40 scheme, just to make those two organizations even easier to mix up. And one of these NPCUs, Unit 9208, was painted into a veterans paint scheme. But 9208 unfortunately struck a forklift in 2019 and has been out of service ever since. In terms of the commuter rail F40s, these went relatively unchanged, apart from midlife refurbs and Caltrain acquiring 3 F40PH-2C locomotives to help expand service. Near the end of the 2010s, the various commuter agencies began looking to retire their aging F40PH locomotives. NCTD and the SERA were the first to look for replacements for their F40 locomotives. NCTD went for the popular Charger locomotive, with locos 5001 through 5005 serving as the replacement, while the SERA went for the EMD F125. Since 800 was a one-off and was very much meant for rescues and switching, and was also very much not liked by crews, 800 was already seeing limited service by the time the F-125s entered service, and by 2020, 800 was stored in the Keller Yard in Los Angeles, where it still sits today awaiting its fate, which will most likely be scrap. Caltrain was next up with their electrification of their route from San Jose to San Francisco and their acquisition of their new Stadler KISS EMUs to replace all of their original F40PH-2 CAT locomotives. However, their three F40PH-2Cs, numbered 920 through 922, with them being many years younger, can still be seen on their non-electrified San Jose to Gilroy portion alongside MP36 locomotives, a segment which runs during peak hours on weekdays only. ACE's F40s are the most present out of all of the California commuter rail F40s, with a few of them still seeing service alongside the newer Charger locomotives ACE got. And for ACE, it appears their F40s will be staying around for a good while longer, with it recently being revealed that these locomotives are planned to be converted into hydrogen power, to my disappointment. The F40PH has seen a nearly 50-year history in the state of California, and despite the limited service they see, they still ride the rails rather frequently on Caltrain, ACE, and as NPCUs. And for those of you who would like to see a coaster N40 in action, the Pacific Southwest Railway Museum in Campo, California managed to acquire locomotive 2103 and cease service leading certain trains along the small desert route the museum has. But with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed this third episode of the Rolling Stock of California. Stay tuned for next episode where I will cover the Bombardier bi-level coach. So with all that being said, I was 5008 Creations, you were the viewer, and I'll see you in the future. Goodbye.